Hello, a very good afternoon and welcome to Valencia, round 22 of 22 and welcome to Inside the Paddock. This is it, the season finale, the final fireworks, as one of our younger fans gets a bit of a telling off from his dad then for getting in the way. Don't worry about it. We like to see young and old on Inside the Paddock, and we should reference it. You come to us after the main man, the Australian Jack Miller, took top spot in that opening session of the weekend. A bit of a weird session, you have to say, with Pecco Bagnaia outside of the top 15, Marco Bezzecchi outside of the top 15, a crash for Firmino Aldeguer. Alex Marquez was strong, but then also did a little bit of testing with a view to 2026, doing some work on the 2025 aero package, quite interestingly, as they try to speed up that adaptation process that he will no doubt go through on Tuesday when he becomes an official Ducati rider for the very first time and makes that big step up from 24 to 26. But in terms of that session, I don't think we can take an awful lot from it. It is, I want to say, unseasonably warm. It's quite humid here in Valencia, but it does seem as though the track is just a little bit greasy offline, and it may well be that as we go through the weekend and the track gets rubbered in, then we'll start to get a real indication and a real picture of how we think the weekend's going to unfold. But a great start for Yamaha and for Jack, although I do think he used a brand new rear tyre to be able to do that, so not an awful lot I think that we can take from that session, but we shall see going forward. Maybe Jack Miller is going to be a podium contender this weekend. Of course, was up there in Phillip Island. Let's see what he can do here in Valencia. It's a place he's had success at before, of course, memorably back in 2020, was it? Wow, 5 years ago now. Had that brilliant one for me, actually. I'd love to know in the comments below. Let us know what is your most underrated MotoGP race of all time. An absolute classic that probably doesn't get the credit it deserves. My contender is Miller versus Morbidelli here back in 2020. That was an absolute thriller, a last lap showdown with the pair of them chucking everything at one another, but I don't think it really gets the credit it deserves. So that's a fun debate as we go into the winter months for you and your MotoGP friends at home to talk about. As I said, leave your answers in the comments below. What is the most underrated MotoGP race of all time? I'd be interested to see what you think as Mr. Foggia, Dennis Foggia, walks past, and we're going out of MotoGP range here. So before we head back up in the other direction, we can see this man, Marco Bezzecchi, who, as I said, a strange session for Bez. We expected him to be pretty strong here this weekend, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, just wasn't able to piece it together in that one. Jorge Martin does return, of course, as well. Great to see the number one out on track. He was the slowest of the riders out there. And speaking to Paolo Bonora in that session, he is a long way from being 100% fit. Hi guys, how are you? Part of the Moto mini series. I'm sure I'll be chatting to those guys on the MotoGP grid in a few years to come. But yeah, Jorge Martin, far from 100% fit. I think that this injury is a little bit more serious and a little bit more complicated than what Aprilia have let on, because even this weekend, it's the very first time he's jumped on any motorcycle full stop. He's still having to receive a lot of help from his dad, Angel Martin, to put the gloves on, to put the helmet on. So he doesn't have the strength to even put his own gloves on through that collarbone, which obviously gives you an indication of the challenges that he's facing this weekend and the fact that he's far from 100% fit. So let's see what he's able to do as we go throughout the weekend. But it's very much about just trying to get some laps and trying to be as ready as possible. Well, just trying to be here pretty much for the Valencia test so they can get a head start on 2026. Another man, if we spin around here, that we can see back in action is the 12 of Maverick Vinales. He is a little bit further along with his injury, although again it is incredibly complex as shoulder injuries normally are. They've had to make a couple of small tweaks to the bike during that session just to try and get him back up and fit again, or back and comfortable again. I mean, it's easy to forget he sustained that injury back in Germany pre the summer break, so that was back in, what was it, the back end of June, early July, and we're now into the middle of November. So yeah, still he says that the injury to be fully healed. Is a 6-month process. Of course, the shoulder was dislocated, did some ligament damage, and we know how complex shoulders can be. So Maverick, even 3-4 months along, is still having huge challenges with that shoulder. So it is going to be round 1 before we finally see Top Gun back at 100%. And I'm being dragged in this direction down by Yamaha for some reason. We'll go behind the trucks anyway and give you a better look. Because, of course, Augusto Fernandez is here once again this weekend. He is wildcard in the V4 package, which we're then going to see from all of the 4 Yamaha riders on Tuesday at the test. A reminder, as we've been telling you throughout the course of the weekend, that MotoGP test, the official start of 2026, is live and exclusive on MotoGP.com. 6 hours of live coverage to bring you with live interviews from myself down in pit lane. We'll have expert commentators coming into the box alongside Matt Burton, Lewis Sudbury. It's well worth tuning in for if you've got nothing on Tuesday afternoon. If you're at work, then sneak an AirPod in and just have it on in the background. We're excellent radio as well as TV coverage. But yeah, we're still waiting, but we fully expect that Yamaha over the course of this weekend, maybe even on Monday ahead of Tuesday, will confirm that they'll be racing the V4 next year. The inline 4 is at the end of its life cycle. All of the work that Augusto Fernandez is doing is indicating the fact that they are moving in the direction of having a V4 powered M1 out there across the board in 2026, with Jack Miller saying to keep expectations pretty low because they're still not dialed up that V4 engine to its maximum capabilities yet. As a result, he thinks that lap times will not jump off the TV screen and give you an indication that Yamaha have found the answer and that they're going to be title challengers next year. So yeah, don't get carried away if you're a Yamaha fan, because it might not make particularly great reading on Tuesday, but Jack was keen to emphasise the fact that this is all part of the process when you make such a massive change to a project, and it will take time for them to be able to piece all of the puzzle together and to be able to try and find a package that is good enough to challenge on a regular basis in 2026, with, of course, Toprak Razgatlioglu on board. We do believe that Toprak is floating around this weekend. I was hoping to try and catch him here, but can't see the Turk at the moment. Interestingly, down at KTM, I did see, as we see, Jorge Martin down here. Let's see if we can very quickly rush down and grab a word with Jorge. But yeah, on Toprak Razgatlioglu, he's not the only one coming across from World Superbikes. Former crew chief Phil Maron will be working with Brad Binder in 2026. Phil, Northern Irishman, of course, will be in orange throughout the course of the weekend as Jorge Martin receives some love from all of the fans here in Valencia. A couple of signatures, a couple of selfies. Jorge, how was that? All good? Struggling? Yeah, struggling and not 100% fit, so not ideal for Jorge, and as a result, you can see the strapping on that right shoulder there. Just gives you an indication of what he's going through this weekend. He was so desperate to get back there. I mean, it has been just a season from hell for Jorge Martin. There's no denying that. World champion 12 months ago, and since then we haven't seen the best of Jorge Martin. We cannot forget he is a world champion, forever will be a world champion, and we all hope that one day we'll be able to see that talent back at its maximum potential, which I think everyone is excited about in 2026. It's one of the huge questions. It's one of the things that we're most excited about seeing in 2026 is the fact that we're going to see an Aprilia which is obviously, given the performances of Marco Bezzecchi, capable of fighting for victories, capable of fighting for a world championship next year. So what can the pairing of Aprilia and Jorge Martin do once Martin is fully fit and fully dialed up with the RSGP? That is one of the big question marks going into next year, and I for one am excited to see what Martin can do when he's back to his best, because when he is at his best, he is electric to watch. There is nobody better in the world over one lap, just finding that dynamite, electric one-lap pace than Jorge Martin. He is the most explosive rider on the grid, and we can't wait for that explosivity to finally come back to MotoGP on board the Aprilia. We're waiting down here for Marco Bezzecchi. Are we waiting or no? We're not waiting. Okay, let's head back up in this direction. I'll let my cameraman go first. After you, sir. I don't want you tripping up as we try and squeeze our way through here, and we'll head back up to the top, shall we, and finish with Ducati down the back of the boxes. I'm hoping that we can find at least somebody before we bid a fond farewell as Andres Madrid walks past. Of course, we'll be swapping to Tech Trois colours next year. He's been Brad Binder's crew chief for a number of years now, was with him, of course, in that uber successful Moto3 campaign, but we'll be working with Enea Bastianini last year, because Enea Bastianini's crew chief throughout the start of this year, Alberto Giribiola, has moved to Yamaha and will be partnering Toprak Razgatlioglu. Those are the only, as we've mentioned with Phil Marin as well, sort of big name changes when it comes to technical staff. Of course, when we get here on Tuesday as well, one of the fun things, not only seeing the riders change colours, but also it's seeing some of the mechanics, some of the technical staff who you often don't hear about any moves to different teams until on Tuesday. You walk down pit lane for the first time and you go, oh, he used to be in red, now he's in blue. So that's always one of the fun games as we get here on Tuesday morning, working out which people have now moved from one colour to another. As we see Gino Borsoi here in conversation. Will we? No, we won't have a word with Gino, because although it was a great session for Jack Miller, we're hoping to try and get some kind of a rider comment, but it looks as though we are struggling on Inside the Paddock, which is not the way I wanted to kick off our final weekend. I was hoping for some kind of success, some kind of luck here in the Valencia paddock, but unfortunately not to be the case so far. We'll finish off by going past Honda, who of course do have Aleix Espargaro here this weekend, who is on sort of a hybrid version of the 2026 package with the revised rear aero, the mass damper in there as well, which is certainly going to be on the bikes come Tuesday for Marini and Mir. We have actually seen Marini try it in Portimao just last weekend as Honda try and prepare for 2026, with all the noises, all the indications being that the package that they're starting to piece together for 2026 is yet another step forward on what they've got now at the end of the season. Of course, that has taken a huge step forward throughout the year to turn it into a podium contender, with Joan Mir, of course, taking podium finishes in Japan and Malaysia. But that 2026 machine apparently is yet better once more, which is certainly good news for everybody in Honda colours as they welcome on Tuesday what is more than likely going to be the new Moto2 World Champion in Brazil's Diogo Moreira. Moreira holding a 24-point advantage as we head into the weekend. Of course, it's going to take a remarkable turnaround for Manu Gonzalez to win that Moto2 World Championship, and if Moreira was to do it, it'd become Brazil's very first two-wheeled Grand Prix World Champion. So what an honour that would be for Diogo and co. And we'll finish up down here in Ducati at the top end of pit lane, where of course there is no Marc Marquez on track this weekend, but there will be Marc Marquez here throughout the weekend in attendance, more so than for anything else, than to be in attendance on Sunday evening for the MotoGP 2025 Awards, where we will officially be crowned your new world champion. And that, of course, will be live and free for you to watch all around the world. 6:30 local time, the show gets underway from here at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo in Valencia. Myself and Alina Marzi on presenting duties for that one. Very much looking forward to it. And the show is capped off by none other than Latin Grammy Award winner Daddy Yankee. Mr. Gasolina himself will be in attendance doing a live concert, which I, for one, and my cameraman as well, by the big smile on his face, is extremely looking forward to dancing the night away to Daddy Yankee on Sunday night. But before that, we've got MotoGP, the final round of the year to get through. We'll be back with you inside the paddock tomorrow, where I believe we might have a co-host, pretty special co-host as well. All I'll tell you is we are 10 years on from a very interesting weekend here in Valencia. the man that was pulling that pose at the end of it, is going to be joining us tomorrow. So make sure you tune in. He's always got something to say, as that man, and look forward to hearing what his opinion is this time around. Not to be missed, midday tomorrow, live on MotoGP social media channels for the final episode of Inside the Paddock in 2025. Do not miss it. It's going to be a belter. Thanks for joining us. I'll try and do better tomorrow than I did today. No luck whatsoever. Couldn't find anybody, but life's like that sometimes. Tune in tomorrow. Promise it'll be a step forward than today.